purposes of specificity, maybe the unwanted first. The part where they're like, the one that's a little more incongruent until their greater value and their greater states. Come out onto the hand first. And you say, would you like it to come on the left hand or the right hand? What is that?
Choice.
Yeah, a choice. And what else is it?
Double blind.
A double blind. So it presupposes that there's two options, which one of the two, right? And so you're getting it there. And step number 3 is make sure the client has a VAK image of the part as it comes out onto the hand. So you say, what does this part look like? Does it look, sound, feel like someone you know? Okay, what's step number 2 of the NLP meta pattern? So when the part goes out on the hand, what does it do? Disassociates them. Yeah. You're calling it a part. You're no longer calling it themselves, what their greatest values are, and them and their thoughts. You're saying, it's not you, it's a part. It's not the greater intention of who you are, it's just this thing outside of you. And so that disassociates the client, the problem. Step number 4 is have the other part come out on the hand. Oh, and when you're asking the client, like, what do these parts look like? Listen for answers, right? Let them speak about it. And oftentimes, if there is like a stall, if they're a deep kinesthetic person, give them time for them to recreate their emotions into words. So, case by case, understand your client. However, if they are overthinking it, call them out. Be like, you already got the answer. What is the picture you see? If they're sitting there like, what does the part look like? And most likely they had something that came to mind, but through whatever filters they have or limiting beliefs, maybe they didn't give themselves the opportunity to have that be the right answer. But the answer that comes into the unconscious mind first is usually the answer we're working with, because your unconscious mind gives you the answer. So I'd like to talk to the part with which this part is in most conflict, the flip side of the coin, the opposite number. Would that part like to come out on the front side of the palm or the back of the palm? So you're getting the part to come out on the other side. And again, what is that? A double bind. So using linguistic patterns of our sentence structure, we help mold the technique and guide the individual to a way that we already have set up, just by using our words. Because we're not making sure the part comes over here. We're saying, here are the two parts. So as the two parts are out in front of them, you ask them again for the second part. Maybe the more beneficial one that we do second. What does this part look like? And again, their brain is literally creating the part in that moment. And it's still fake. However, it means a lot. Because it shows them that there is a dissociation from their problem. That they can step out of the problem and say, here's the problem, and therefore when the problems are there, the solutions are there. And we're working with the individual with that. And this is the part. So this is the part where the parts integration, the greatest intention is to bring congruency. Because oftentimes the individual has great values in life, of what they really want. And these words are chunked up generalizations. So the part that I was using workout metaphors just because, me, life. So the individual that wants to work out, and then the part of them that just wants to hang out, each of these parts have intentions or values, which are a part of the individual's value system. And so by observing and allowing the client to sit there and see both their parts and see the greater intention of what the part wants, they can start to release a little bit of the emotional tension that, especially with the negative behavior, because one of the presuppositions of NLP is that every behavior has a positive intention. That the unconscious mind has built-in ecology. So somewhere at some time, even though it's a really shitty behavior that they don't like, there's something within that behavior that they truly helps them see the greater reason for the behavior. Because if they get caught up in the, oh, I'm doing this thing and it's self-sabotaging and I just hate myself because I'm doing this thing that's negative and that's not empowering. But if you ask questions in a certain way that allow them to see that there's these behaviors they're doing and it's because they want something that's good for them, that's positive, that's a greater value, they can never look at the part the same. And a lot of their thought patterns and like directed ideas towards the thought can become more empowering, maybe more loving. It makes more sense if it's coming from a positive intention and they can see it differently. So when you have these two parts in front of you or in front of your client, you begin chunking up each part separately in order to separate each part's intention from its behavior. So I'd like to ask this part, what is the intention? And allowing your client to maybe like look at the part and talk to the part and see like, what do you want? And they'll receive an answer. And they say, oh, the part that wants to relax, it just wants to feel good and chill. Okay, and it wants to feel good and chill. And using their hot words to bring another question back into play. And that part wants to feel good and chill for what purpose? Because feel good and chill is still a little meta down. It's still not as generalized where it could be like a whole life value. Chill for what purpose? To relax. Relax is getting maybe a little bit more up there. And again, keep asking them. And you might end up with like 4, 5, 7, 20 purposes and intentions, but try and go really higher up because there's purpose for this. It wants to relax. Okay, for what purpose? For self-love. And self-love is getting there. And I could see sometimes self-love still being a little too chunked down because there could be a greater intention of like ultimate love, unconditional love, that's just so generalized and even outside of them, that will affect how they maybe approach other people too, right? So maybe it's self-love for what purpose? Oh, for unconditional love. Now we're at something that's just like a little spacey, trancy out there and very generalized. So continue chunking up in this fashion and continue until agreement is reached. So now we also have the other part. And you can say something along the lines of, and this part that wants to relax wants unconditional love. If it feels okay, maybe thank the part. Because this part just wants unconditional love. This part created this behavior of not exercising, of hanging out, relaxing, because it wants unconditional love. And then they see this part differently. And once they thank them, you give a little like closure, thank you. Now let's switch to the other part. I can see a break state happening in between that. It doesn't say, but maybe just like a little like, take a deep breath, something like that. To say now we're moving to this part. And now this part, what is the intention of one that wants to work out or exercise? To get skinny. Okay, very good. And again, that's a means value, not an end value. We're looking at end values here, which are the higher purpose of things. Okay, so get skinny for what purpose? To feel good. And feel good is very similar to the other one I wanted to feel good. And we can go up even higher to feel good for what purpose? For love and for unconditional love. Now, that's the key of parts integration because they both want the same thing. They both Because they both want the same thing, because the individual you're working with has a higher value of what they want in life and a positive, like, greater thing that's important to them. So if they say the same word, boom, hot spot, right there, you got it. And now, as a practitioner, you're using your framework of sentences to, now you have an agreement reached at a very high abstract level. Once the hands have moved at least half the distance originally, so naturally, because they are in a little bit of a, there's the word that begins with like a K when someone's chilling here with their arms. I can't remember it, but when they're in like a trance with their physiology, they're not really controlling their arms. Even though, what is it? Yes. Catatonic. It's something along those lines, right? Catalepsy.
Oh,
Yeah. So their hands are in a little bit of a trance, and naturally, when both parts want the same thing, their hands will start to come closer to one another, and you'll see it because they both want the same thing, and so they're almost like coming towards each other, and so use your words. And these parts both want the same thing. So these behaviors that these parts act upon is because of the unconditional love that they both want. Have you noticed that your hands have started moving closer together? Interesting. Along those lines, it could even be a little leading in that sense to, and I'll speak more to this in a moment, to allow someone to come back into integration. And begin giving suggestions for integration. Okay, let's go back to the meta pattern. So we did the dissociate to problems, and then now associate to resources is what? Which part of this is associating to the resources?
When you identify that there are similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you identify the positive intention and the resources, the greater purpose for the parts. So that's the resources that they're associating now, because they didn't associate to the fact that this part wanted unconditional love. They thought that they were just doing some self-sabotaging behaviors that they just like hate and they should be mad at themselves for. But really, it's because they love themselves so much. And that's a different resource, a way different resource. You never see the part the same again if it's that is the intention. So when you begin giving suggestions for integration, I wonder if the parts can notice how that they once were part of the larger whole, and allowing the parts to come together once again, knowing that they come for the same purpose, same reason, that there needs to be no more fighting anymore. These parts want the same thing. Language such as that. And that's associating resources to the present moment when they're starting to come together. And the biggest thing is when they come together and their hands are there, and you just gently, very gently, just guide them into them. And you say they're now part of the whole once again. And these parts, they grew because they had certain reasons and they had certain ideas, and it's okay. These parts are there because they served you at one point, and now they can come together once again to be a part of the whole. So you're associating the resources to the present moment, bringing it back into the individual. And it says here, you can also ask, are there any other parts who were once part of the larger whole? Please ask if they would like to join in on the integration also. Notice the presuppositions in that. If there are any other parts who were once part of the larger whole, so it's presupposing that they were obviously part of the larger whole, so there's no longer any more separation still, please ask if they would like to join in on the integration also. Joining in. I could see that sentence lead down to what James was saying, how the gentleman had 17 parts. And just became really dissociated from the idea that these parts are like fake and they're just representations of a certain neural thought pattern. And so using words like join in on the integration also, it kind of could skip from going down so many other parts. You're just saying join in. Okay. So many more join in. Or what resources or attributes does each part have that the other part would like to have? And again, you're creating that congruency, like this part wants that, and you're just asking questions that help them observe their problem in a different way. That's what we're doing. We're not really talking to parts, we're talking to the problem that's going on and how we can, again, grab resources from a certain area and put them into the present state. And grab resources from other parts of their life or other parts of other people's lives and just allow the person in front of you to see that there's so many more resources and that they have full and complete so every individual has everything they need to receive the outcome that they want. That every individual has all the resources that they ever need in their life to receive what they want. That's what we're showing here. It's empowering. As the hands come close together, give additional suggestions for integration. Then as they finally touch, you can gently push the hands up so they fold into the heart as you say. Now you can let the parts reintegrate back into the whole again. Give some time for integration, sensory acuity. You'll notice when they're going through process and then when they're maybe complete with their process of integration, which could take anywhere from 30 seconds to my deeply kinesthetic friend took about like 4 minutes. It was just beautiful. It was so amazing to just hold space and observe integration. And then the last step, which is number 5 of the meta pattern, is to test in future pace. So how are things different now? Well, I understand that when I do those things, that it's not for self-sabotaging, that it's just for love. And when you see those things now, what difference does that make for you? And what difference does that make for you? Okay, so now 3 months, when you think of a time where that old pattern of observing the part in that way would come up, what's different now? How do you see it now? Oh, well, I mean, if I really want to work out, I can work out. If I really want to chill, it's okay because that's love too. You know, so it's seeing the situation differently. So I want to share an example with my friend because her example is really cool. And it's important because if we observe the parts of things that we need to get rid of, right, what is NLP about? It's not about reducing. It's about more. It's about possibility. So we're increasing choice. So we're not saying you need to literally cut off this part of you and say goodbye to it all the time. It's saying observe that this is a part. And observe that there's other ways to view this part and there's other possibilities to see the situation. So one of my friends, her observation was that she sometimes really wants to like work and live her purpose and help others and create content and run across the ocean, and then sometimes she just wants to relax on a couch. And so her parts were a sloth and a unicorn. And she had already, in a way, identified the part as a sloth, and you know, she understanding that when she was in this certain neural wiring and pattern that it was a sloth. So she pretty much already named that before the parts. The way that she was seeing the sloth, though, was what? It was negative. It was like, oh, I shouldn't be that way. I should be this like high-class entrepreneur that can run free and run across the ocean and help others and create content. This is the unicorn. It's the unicorn. When we did parts integration and the two come together, the sloth was observed entirely differently. And it was beautiful to see the integration that happened. And now she carries a sloth stuffed animal and a unicorn stuffed animal. Which like wherever she goes. And she calls it a slothicorn. And so now seeing that was a part that was like, oh, a part, but now it's like, no, it's a part of me. And you're just like, you're creating that more empowering state of there are reasons that you thought the way you thought. And you can observe the situation differently so that you can create a more ecological and beneficial reality for yourself. And so now in those moments that, you know, the negative behavior comes up, it's not seen as negative. It's seen as positive and part and a part of you and a part of the whole, so you're no longer so dissociated from it as something that has power over you. You accept it as part of you. And you accept it as part of you, and you can realize that you make all the decisions. Nothing can make you change. Nothing can literally make you step forward into doing things. Like the sloth can't come take over. It's you and your brain and your decisions on how to implement the ideas. Yes. Let's see. So how a few more what ifs. Okay. So there has been a situation where the hands just don't move. You're like, maybe they're starting to come together and they're just not moving, right? Have you had this with a client? It's one of the most that I feel is like, they're supposed to come together. What do I do?
I'm gonna fuck them up.
And I'm fuck it all up. It's done. It didn't work. What do we know about NLP? Do things not work?
Music always feedback.
Yeah. There's no failure, only feedback. And what is one of the character resources that we use as an NLP practitioner? We stay flexible. Things are gonna happen, and this is a piece of paper and a guidance system, but humans are way beyond pieces of paper and words. They're just very complex. So what are some things that we could do if hands aren't coming together? Chunk up higher. Yeah, go into even greater, and then notice if there's chunk up higher to greater values, greater purpose. What else do we do?
Double check that it really is conflict.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Double check that it's really a problem. How do we do that?
Ask them, what you notice? What's the problem here?
Yeah,
How is that a problem?
Yeah.
How are these two parts being different a problem for you?
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, they're not. Then it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Why didn't you put your arms down?
Yes. And you can, and use your linguistics that's and observing that these two parts are, what they want and what they value, and it's not a problem. And that's the best part, is now you can see these things. It's not a problem. You have a solution now. Things like that. And you could also, I wonder what it would be like to allow your hands to come closer, to represent that your parts are coming closer, too. That's worked for me, because maybe my client was just a little in more of an AD scenario where their hands weren't moving, they weren't coming together. So, good. Cool. And so, okay, perfect, thank you. I wonder what it would be like if they come closer together. And, you can even, lightly tap your hands and guide them. It depends on, everything happens under the umbrella of rapport. When you're in rapport with your client, you can also assist them in the technique, in the process. Other scenario, what if they really want separate things? What if you chunk up and you keep chunking up and you keep chunking up and the words are still different? Shit. You're supposed to want the same thing. I did it wrong. No, the individual just represented the scenario in a different way. And okay, so what happens then? You have these two high values that are positive, and you can say, wow, this part wants this thing, and this part wants this thing. And what if they could both come together to want both of those things? Something along those lines, really flow with the flexibility and see that the whole purpose and the intention of parts integration is to talk about the problem. When you talk through it, things change. When you put the situation outside of you and you say, this is what's going on, and you're no longer stepping into the reality of the situation, change is happening. So really, even putting the parts on the hands, that does a lot. That's a huge process to observe the individual's neural patterning that they experience and understanding that it wants a certain thing. So really know that there's no failure, only feedback, flow, and go with what the current situation is. Allow your words to be empowering, to be guiding them to wholeness, knowing that they are whole and they have everything that they need. And last one is, Liz, you were talking about this and you were doing timeline and you want to do parts on the timeline, something along those, or was it parts and then it was timeline on the parts?
Yeah.
Yeah, see? Is that allowed?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah! So we had a experience in NLP Mastery last year where there was parts. Well, first there was timeline, and then we did parts in the timeline.
Okay.
Right? So again, so an individual is not just sharing their ideas, they're literally sharing their model of the world with you. And because he was an NLP practitioner, he was like, you know what, I think, what if we did parts during the timeline to like my younger self? Do you think that's gonna work?
Yeah.
Hell yeah, it was his idea. Of course it's gonna work. If they're like, I think maybe we should try this, go for it, because they're literally giving you their model of the world that will work. And so all he needed was just like the guidance through it, and then it worked beautifully. It's like, great. So you can do parts in timeline or do timeline in parts. Again, the whole purpose of this is just to talk about problems and to allow change work to happen by just observing situations and new possibilities. So, parts integration. Going from point A to point B, allowing the individual to know that they have all the resources that they need to create any change that they want. And these techniques are mere representations of linguistic structure that is imposed on a situation, so experience can be different and change can be made.
I forgot to take notes.
Great!
Your
unconscious mind absorbed everything.
I just sat and was mesmerized. That was so awesome.
Yeah.
I did. I just was like, no. Oh wait, I didn't.
Yeah! You got it. You got it all, exactly.
Oh,
You
it
got
was fantastic though. You were awesome.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I love NLP so much.
Really, never would have known that. You really ought to work on getting it out there so
Yeah.
people can appreciate how you feel more.
Sweet. So I got to
Thank you, Aubrie. Cool. So it's 10:01. We're gonna take a quick 10-minute break and start up at 10:11.
Better understand.
Yeah.
Great feedback.
Nice. I know.